This is the Uptick Newswire Stock Day podcast, sponsored by InvestorsHangout.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube to stay up to date on penny stock news and interviews, public information on OTC, pink sheets, and microcap stocks from around the world, with your host, Everett Jolly.
On today's show, we have a returning guest, and he was back on my show back in April of 2018. We're talking no other than First Cobalt Corp. And if you're looking for a pure play in cobalt, you might want to take a look at this company. I think it's grossly undervalued here, around 46, 47 cents. They trade on the OTCQB under the ticker symbol FTSSF. And with us today to talk about his company is the CEO, Trent Mell. Trent, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Everett. Hope you're well.
You know, last interview that you and I discussed, we talked about the U.S. Cobalt merger. Now that's completed. Why is there such a disconnect in your share price from that merger?
Yeah, it was an all-share deal. And so, I think 99.9% of all-share transactions, the bidder stock goes down in the lead up to a transaction. So that was expected, truthfully, a little heavier than I would have liked. We're heading into the, we call the summer doldrums in terms of flow, but I think that'll start to bounce back. But I would say overlay on top of that just the sentiment in the cobalt market. I would say after a 2-year period where cobalt is increased by a factor of 4, we've seen a pullback in the last 3 weeks. Cobalt price is off by about 10%. We had a lot of noise out of the DRC, troubles with Katanga and Gécamines. Are they going to supply? Are they not? So there's been a lot of uncertainty around the market, and then Elon Musk, I think, stoked the flames a little bit by speculating they could take cobalt out of their Teslas altogether, which is dead wrong. But there's just a lot of things kind of going on in the background in what has been a very hot commodity that have caused investors, I think, to take a bit of a pause. And as that'll regulate itself. And once that works through the market, I think we'll see ourselves trade up back to where we were before we made our bid for U.S. Cobalt.
Well, you guys personally have 3 projects going on with First Cobalt Corp. What does U.S. Cobalt bring to the table?
Yeah, what U.S. Cobalt does, one, it gets us into America. The U.S. Government, Washington, put cobalt on the list of critical minerals last December. And what that means is there's a push afoot domestically to try to nurture domestic production of cobalt. Today, there is no primary source of cobalt in the United States. A little bit out of the Stillwater mine in Montana, which is a platinum mine, a little bit out of Michigan in a gold copper play, but there's nothing there. And so what this does is it marries up a team of sort of veteran miners and with a good treasury with a refinery that's permitted in Canada and a big asset base already in Ontario with an asset in Idaho that candidly is it's high grade, it's more advanced than the projects we have, and this is going to become the lead asset in my mind as a development asset and something that we could bring into production in a fairly expeditious fashion, supported, frankly, by the policies of the U.S. government.
I was reading, and I don't want to be misquoted or misquote the press release. You guys have the only license, is that true, up there in North Canada? Yeah,
so one of the features in North America, so, recall cobalt this is really a Congo story, right? Most of it is being mined, more than 2/3 coming out of the DRC.
Right.
And about 80% of the battery-grade cobalt materials is coming out of China. And so we want to distinguish ourselves as being the America story, right? You mine it in Idaho, you process it into a final material in Ontario, and then we want to ship it back into America and sell it to one of the big 3 or a Google or an Apple or even Tesla's Gigafactory. But the idea here is just a made-in-America solution that gets us away from this concentration of a critical material in 2 different countries. And how we get there is this refinery. The unique feature of cobalt mined in North America is almost everywhere you look, you got a high association with arsenic. And the only facility I'm aware of that's currently permitted that can treat high arsenic concentrates, maybe the world, but certainly in North America, is our refinery in Ontario. And so it's small and it's been on care and maintenance for about 3 years now, but it's a flow sheet that works, and more importantly, we've got the permits that are required to process high arsenic ores. And you could replicate that elsewhere, but it would take you years to get something like that permitted. So we've got a head start, not just for our own material, but I believe that facility could prove to be a gateway to production for anything else here on the continent.
My guest today is Trent Mell. He's the president and CEO of First Cobalt Corp. They trade on the OTCQB under the ticker symbol FTSSF. FTSSF. Take a look at them. Stock price is very undervalued here, around 46, 47 cents. Trent, let me ask you this. I saw that you guys announced the receipt of the CFIUS approval for the U.S. Cobalt transaction. Can you talk more about it and what's involved in the process, and what does that mean to your company?
Sure. The CFIUS process it's an interesting one as a Canadian, although a neighbor. Basically, I had to go to Washington and explain why the acquisition, effectively, it was an acquisition of a Canadian company by a Canadian company, but involving a U.S. asset, and why this was not contrary to the national interests of the U.S. And it was a receptive audience. I think the big focus for the regulators that I've met with is where is this cobalt going to end up? We need domestic supply, and I made it pretty clear that my intent was to shun the overtures that we're hearing right now out of a bunch of Asian counterparties, and to try to focus on building relationships here in America. And so, we want to do the right thing. We want to create value for our shareholders. There's no need to ship this halfway around the world when you got a ready market right here in Michigan and on the West Coast. And with that dialogue, it was an important dialogue because they can deny a transaction. Now cobalt is right up there with uranium plays and defense contractors, but for good reason. There's not a lot of it in the world, and I think our opportunity to fast track and bring, frankly, a lot of money into the state of Idaho was helpful in getting this transaction done.
Currently, both your companies, the U.S. Cobalt and First Cobalt, you guys are in pre-revenues right now. I was going to ask you, what would be the catalyst that we can expect going forward here in the third and fourth quarter, maybe from the Iron Creek project in Idaho and the Kerr Lake in Cobalt?
Sure, yeah, we are pre-cash flow. I think with a bit of heavy lifting here, we could see ourselves in development in Idaho within a 3-year time frame. So in terms of mine feed or mine development, Idaho comes up top of the list right now in the asset base we have. But even before that, with our refinery, we're looking at taking in feed from other sources. So whether it be recycled material, whether it be mine feed from other sources, or even our refinery is surrounded by 100 historic mines that operated some 50 to 75 years ago. So we're looking at can we do something there? You'll see a report from us out in 60 days on the refinery, CapEx, and what a restart might look like. So that'll be probably a summer catalyst. I think the big catalyst, though, is going to be by October, if not earlier, when we release a maiden resource estimate on the Iron Creek deposit in Idaho. There's a historic resource estimate there of well over 1 million tons of high grade. I mean, it's high grade by you stack it up against any project in the world. And so we've done a lot of drilling. The U.S. Cobalt team did a lot of drilling before we took them over. We're working on the resource estimate, and I think as soon as we get that out, we'll be halfway down the path of yet a second resource estimate, which will increase it even further. And on the heels of that, and of a project that merits some attention, you're going to see us beef up our board and senior management team with more technical personnel that can help get this across the finish line. And we're well positioned to do that. We've got 25 million Canadian or so in working capital right now. And so in this period of depressed prices, lithium, graphite, and cobalt, we're all down 15-20% over the last 3 months. I'm okay with that. We've got our work ahead of us. We'll put our heads down. Great entry point for new interest. And by the time the smoke clears and we resume on our trajectory, I think we'll have a lot to talk about.
First Cobalt Corp's company that we're highlighting today here on Stock Day. Trent, I want to thank you very much for stopping by and talking with us. In closing, is there anything that we didn't get a chance to touch upon that you would like to illustrate to my listeners?
Yeah, I think when you start looking at mining investments, the reality is it's a thin number of companies that eventually going to make it all the way through. And I've had the good fortune of strong investor support, favorable capital markets when I needed to raise the money. We've got some great assets and a strong team. And so I'd encourage your investors to have a look at us. There's only 3 or 4 really pure play cobalt companies that are investable, in my opinion. And we've broken our way into that list. And I look forward to, I'm a shareholder like as I should be. And I look forward to coming back and giving you some results in the fall.
I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure to have you on here. Take a look at First Cobalt Corp. Very undervalued here at 46, 47 cents. You can find them on the OTCQB under the ticker symbol FTSSF. Trent, thank you for your time. Great pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, Everett.
This program is entirely sponsored and produced by Uptick Newswire LLC, which is responsible for the content. The opinions and information provided on this program are those of the guests and those of the respective companies they represent, and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff or management of Uptick Newswire. Uptick Newswire encourages all listeners of this program to do their due diligence and research when determining investment strategies that will work for them, or to seek the assistance of an investment professional. The guests of this program may have paid for its distribution and are not directly affiliated with Uptick Newswire or this station.